Leon. Chief of the General Security Service, Mr. Ronen Bar. Commissioner of the Prison Service, Major General Katie Perry. Members of Knesset, Director General of the National Insurance Institute, Mr. Spiegler, Commander of the Jerusalem District Superintendent Turjeman, the Chair of the Organization of Victims of Hostilities, bereaved families, distinguished audience. I am honored to open the State Memorial Service for victims of hostilities in Israel and abroad. A silent tune written by Racheli Sharon. That moment stopped. My breath was taken. My gaze was frozen. The pictures of my life were painted with sadness. Why? How come? Basically, evil of the one who wanted to harm us. My voice was silent but filled the vacuum. From the private, it became national. Years of redemption brandish the flag as a national healing for the paining soul. And in that, I stretch a hand and I hear a silent tune. It captures my heart. A tune of light and laughter. This is the picture that I want to preserve. And it plays on me as a harp. The names of the fallen is part of our national legacy and leaves us to be the leaders of the world. Sometimes in that tune we cannot stop. This is the legacy of the heroes. For lighting the torch of remembrance, reading a chapter of Psalms, reciting the Kaddish and the prayer El Malei Rachamim, please rise. The torch of remembrance will be lit by Mrs. Ilana Yehoshua, the widow of Yigal Yehoshua of blessed memory, and Mr. Haggai Ginsberg, brother of Azariah Ginsberg of blessed memory. On 11th of May 2021, during the riots in Lod, Yigal Yehoshua, a resident of Lod, was fatally wounded by stones thrown at him by rioters. On May 17, he was pronounced dead. Haggai Ginsberg, bereaved brother. On August 11th, 1970, the administrator of the kibbutz, Binyamin Kfir, and with him Azariah Ginsberg, went to the sunflower areas of the kibbutz, accompanied by 3 young girls who were planning to join the kibbutz. They were thinking to live in the kibbutz with them. The jeep in which the 5 were traveling was hit by a Syrian mine, and all its passengers were killed on the spot. In the early hours of the morning, after a night of searching, their bodies were found.
המשמר ידגל את משקו. דגל, שק. המשמר יחטיף את נשקו. החטף, שק. המשמר יציג את נשקו. הצג, שק. המשמר יעבור לנוח. עמוד נוח.
A chapter from Psalms recited by the Chief Military Rabbi, Brigadier General Rabbi Eyal Krim.
הכתם לדוד, שומרי ניאל, כי חסיתי בך. אמרת לה, אדוני, אדוני אתה, טובתי בלעליך. לקדושים אשר בארץ המה, ואדירי כל חפצי בם. ירבו עצבותיהם אחר מארו, בלסיך נזכיהם מדם, ובלשא את שמותם על שפתי. אדוני מנת חלקי וחוסי, אתה תומך גורלי. חבלים נפלו לי בנעימים, אף נחלת שפרה עליי. אברך את אדוני אשר יעצני, אף לילות יסרוני חיליותי. שיביתי אדוני לנגדי תמיד, כי מימיני בא למות. לכן שמח ליבי ויגל כבודי, אף בשרי ישכון לבטח. לא תעזוב נפשי לשאול, לא תיתן חסידך לראות שחת. תודיעני אורח חיים, סוב השמחות את פניך הנעימות בימינך נצח.
המשמר יעבור לנוח, עמוד נוח.
Reciting the Kaddish prayer by Gueta Elisha, father of Yuda Gueta, of blessed memory. On May 2, 21, a terrorist left his home with a pistol containing a cartridge and many bullets in order to carry out a vicious plan. The terrorist placed the gun on the seat next to him and covered it with a prayer rug. He arrived by car at the Tapuach Junction in Samaria, where Gueta and his two friends were standing at the bus stop. As the terrorist approached the station, he noticed that these are Jewish citizens. He pointed his weapon and fired at some of them at close range. In this terrorist incident, the terrorists managed to injure 3 90-year-old civilians who were evacuated to the hospital. A few days later, Yehuda Gueta, a yeshiva student, died of his fatal wounds during that terrorist attack. The Kaddish prayer.
יהא שמך רבה מברך לעולם לעולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל לשמך דקודשה בריחו לעילם מן כל ברכתה שירתה שבחתה ונחמת האדם
This is the Kaddish, the prayer said for the dead here. Again, you're watching the live ceremony at Israel's military cemetery here at Mount Herzl in Jerusalem. Here, this is the official ceremony taking place today. This was the Kaddish. Ceremony continues now.
The prayer El Maleh Rachamim, God full of mercy, recited by the IDF Chief Cantor, Lieutenant Colonel Shai Abramson.
El Maleh Rachamim, Shochen Bameromi, המצא מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים טהורים וגיבורים כזוהר הרקיע מהירים ומזהירים לנשמות חללי שליחי המדינה בארץ ומחוצה לה, אנשים ונשים, ילדים וילדות שנרצחו בידי המרצחים מארגוני הטרור. בעבוד שאנו מתפללים לעילוי נשמותיהם בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם, לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, וביצרו ביצרו החיים את נשמותיהם. אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו ושלום על משכבותם, ויעמדו לגואלם לקץ הימים, ונאמר אמן.
יכול לזכור את הגלים, אבל הקצף אין זוכר, זולת מה שעברו עם רוח לילה מאחר, מזיכרונם ולעולם לא יימחר.
חיות רכות שנעמו קינה של ים ובתלמים על הגבעות ושניים שחלפו דומם מן החצה והגברים והשקמה והשקמה
We heard the military band in the song I Can Remember by Natan Yonatan. Dear families, for years you were upset about not having an official monument for people who were hit by terrorist attacks. But this year the government invested tens of millions of shekels in order to construct such a monument. I have the honor to call upon the President of the state, Yitzhak Herzog. Dear and beloved families, mothers, fathers, widows, widowers, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, beloved ones, those who were injured in terrorist attacks, the Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, the Speaker of the Knesset, M.K. Miki Levy and Mrs. Levy, the President of the Supreme Court, Esther Chayut and Mr. Chayut, the Minister of Welfare, Meir Cohen, the Chair of the WZO and Acting Director of JAPI, Aaron Hagorel, the people from the security system, the Mayor of Jerusalem, Moshe Leon, MKs, the Director General of National Insurance, Meir Spiegler, the Chair of the Organizations of Victims of Hostilities, citizens of Israel. Here in this sacred place, we tell the story of our life here. It is the story of a day-to-day heroism, the heroism to choose to live in Israel. Here at the memorial for these day-to-day heroes, their names are inscribed side by side forever. From all across the land, from all the communities and faiths, a uniquely special Israeli mosaic, a mosaic of grief and pain, a mosaic of pride. Israelis in their lives and in their deaths, between whom terror drew no distinction, decreeing the same fate for all. The woman on the bus, on her way to work, who didn't even know that this was her final journey. The young father, who physically shielded his infant son from a depraved terrorist's hail of bullets in the heart of their neighborhood. The family, who went out to celebrate in a restaurant when a suicide bomber cut their lives short. The childhood friends, who were never apart, neither in life nor in death, not even when the murderous bullets caught up with them on a city street. Ladies and gentlemen, the terror attacks that we've witnessed in the last few weeks, and even in these recent days, are another proof for this painful and deeply Israeli truth. And in such days of angst, and because of them, although the ceremonial protocol does not require it, I seemed an important duty to speak here today, in the first year of my presidency, together with you, the dear bereaved families of the victims of terror, and to express not only my profound identification with you, but also the sense of identification that beats in the hearts of every citizen in Israel. Michal and I visited in recent weeks those families who lost their loved ones in this present wave of terrorism all over the country, from south to north. Each family has its own story, each its own disaster. The pain of Israelis who lived their lives here and without planning to became day-to-day heroes, inseparable and deeply sad part of the Israeli ethos. We've met grieving yet inspirational families, pained and in agony yet strong and proud. We've met young widows and orphan children. We've met parents and loving relatives, sisters, brothers, sons, partners. We've met them all. And what astonishes us time and again is their internal resilience, their cohesiveness as families, their unimaginable strength. I left each home and I said to Michal, this, Nathan, is unbeatable. It is simply remarkable. You, dear and beloved families, you give inspiration and strength to a whole nation. Citizens of Israel, since the early days of the Jewish settlement in the land of Israel, we've had to face the hostility of those who do not wish us to be here. Even in recent months and even this week, hatred and murderers have also attacked us without mercy. And this time too, terror has not won, nor shall it win. The state of Israel is stronger than ever, stronger in spirit and might, responding with an iron fist and steadfast spirit against every attack and every threat. We all pray for different days. Days in which we may all see terror as a chapter of the past. But until we are blessed with such days, we shall continue to stand guard and to defend ourselves. Dear members of the family of grief, we are bound to continue telling from generation to generation the story of your loved ones. Those who physically added another layer and another level to the history of our beloved country. I believe that the establishment of this new Victims of Acts of Terror Memorial will reflect their part in building the country and the story of heroism of actually living here. A choice that sometimes incurs danger and a price that tragically you have paid. Dear bereaved families, as on every day of the year, our hearts remain with you, and especially today. And we hope and pray that you will know no more pain or sorrow, and that you will experience more joyful occasions. On behalf of the people of Israel, I pray for the health and well-being of all those injured in terrorist attacks. May they merit full health in spirit and in body. This year and in the future, let us say Amen. May the memories of victims of hostile acts remain in our hearts and in the heart of the nation forevermore. I have the honor to call upon the Prime Minister, Mr. Naftali Bennett, to address us.
This is Prime Minister Naftali Bennett on the podium here at the national ceremony for victims of terror, being heckled by some families in attendance right now. There had been some pushback against the Prime Minister ahead of the ceremony by certain families on a certain side of the political spectrum, arguing that Bennett and his government are acquiescing to terrorists. So some of that apparently being expressed right now as he readies to deliver a speech at the ceremony. Again, the Prime Minister just dealing with the heckling from some bereaved families awaiting the quiet.
Bereaved families. And yes, you're allowed to pain, you're allowed to shout.
Again, the Prime Minister on the podium right now dealing with the heckling of some bereaved families here in attendance as they slowly make their exit, speaking to the tense moment that it is, and some of the families that have been outspoken ahead of the ceremony against the Prime Minister, claiming and arguing that his coalition government is placating the terrorists.
Bereaved families. President of the state, ladies and gentlemen, I love you immensely. And I hear your pain.
And the Prime Minister waiting for some semblance of quiet here. Extended period of anger and heckling taking place. I don't recall anything like this in many years at these types of ceremonies, usually a moment of national solidarity, people coming together, this being the biggest incident of heckling in any recent memory for a Prime Minister at a ceremony of this type. Again, the Prime Minister still waiting for quiet.
Beloved families, Ori Ansbacher, who was 19, grew up in a very warm and good family in the settlement of Tkoa in Gush Etzion. She volunteered to national service not far from here. where she dealt with the youth at risk or youth with special needs in a center close to the Jerusalem Biblical Zoo. Ori Ansbacher was a beautiful girl and pure at heart. In the summer of 2019, Ori took a walk in nature, in Ein Yael, where there's a stream. On that day, Arafia, a Palestinian 29 years old of Hebron, left his home with a dark and clear aim to murder Jews. He came across Ori. He pounced on her, stabbed her, hit her with inconceivable cruelty, and murdered her. Pure evil met pure good. Total darkness met total light. In that day, in that attack, evil prevailed. But we should know, all of us, that in the great battle, which is the existence of the State of Israel, a state of light, of sanctity, of optimism, is the biggest victory on all the forces of evil. The sanctity of today is felt in the air, and the pain. Every family here mourns and remembers its loved ones in its own way. Each family, and it's okay. It's okay also to be angry. We read the portion of the week, Kedoshim. You are Kedoshim. You are holy. And when Aaron was told about the death of his two sons, Aaron, the brother of Moses, the Torah says, and Aaron stood silent. Every family here remembers its dear ones, remembers and reminds, tells the world the story of those who left us too soon and still have too much to give to the world. And that their lives were cut short by evil people, by violence, by darkness. Dear families, for years you fought and acted in order to amend the thought of a lack of an official monument to the victims of hostilities. But this year we did something, and we are mending this thought, and we allocated from the government tens of millions of shekels to finally establish a memorial for your dear ones. And this is the least we can do. Brothers and sisters, we remember, we commemorate, but we still refuse to believe. Sometimes the memory is a story or a picture or a video clip. And as I said, sometimes the day is the day of Aaron. He stood silent. The battlefield has its own laws, but unfortunately in Israel, the entire people are a front. From the dawn of Zionism, when the Jews came back home to the land of Israel in the 19th century already, our enemies from day one did not accept our existence here. They think, by mistake, that if they kill us, sometime we are going to break. Sometime we are going to disintegrate. How wrong they are. How hateful you have to be a terrorist in order to go and to hit innocent people who were not searching for violence. All they wanted was good, that their only sin was that they're Jews, Israelis, who want to live peaceful here in our country, in their homeland. Even these days and these weeks, we have to cope with another wave of terror. This wave has its own characteristics, by the way, like any other wave. Always there are different characteristics. Sometimes it's explosive buses, sometimes it's young people with knives, sometimes it's a murderer who penetrates into a synagogue, sometimes organized terrorism, sometimes by lone wolves. The characteristics might be different, but the motivation is the same: to turn our life here, God forbid, in our own homeland to hell. If only our enemies would invest in their own future 1/10 of the energy that they invest in hitting us, their situation would have been totally different. But they are choosing time and again to sanctify death, which leaves them in poverty, in bitterness, in misery, and a constant sense of victim. We cannot influence what they can think, but we can take responsibility for ourselves, for our decisions. And our basic decision remained as is. We are staying here on our land, in the land of Israel. Nothing and nobody will break the spirit of the people of Israel. Nothing will move us out of here, because the eternity of the Jewish people will never lie. Anybody who looks at this wondrous state of us with sober eyes and in an open heart cannot but admire. While we are protecting ourselves vis-a-vis enemies far and near in all fronts, we built an exemplary state here, a world center of technology and innovation. Israel is a superpower of charity organizations and responsibility. There's no such thing in the world. It doesn't exist. A superpower of culture and art, an unprecedented blossoming of the Torah world, an economic engine, one of the strongest in the world, and a vibrant democracy. Yes, with many opinions. And all these are possible because of the spirit of the wonderful people in our security forces, the IDF, the Mossad, the Shabak, the Israeli police. The commanders are here, and they're working so hard with their whole soul, all days, all nights. And also the citizens, those who have their willingness to contribute to every mission in real time, including citizens who actually defend others during an attack, who protect with their bodies on others, as Vyacheslav Golev did, of blessed memory, when he saved the life of his fiancée in the attack in Ariel just a few days ago. Vis-a-vis this terror wave, we are going to continue to act under one principle: initiative. We are going to persecute the terrorists everywhere, wherever they are, in their bases, in their beds at night. There's not one place that's out of bounds for us. There isn't, and there will not be, as much as it concerns me. There will be no barriers, no limits in the war against terror. Because this is our moral obligation to protect our lives at all costs. Ori Ansbacher, may God revenge her death, left those words behind her: do that your world will be a world of peace, world peace, young peace. We here commit ourselves that we're going to do anything so that our world will be a world of peace and peace among us and shalom of the young. May the memory of your family members, those victims of terrorism, be blessed. The words on behalf of the bereaved families will be delivered by Mr. A.B. Moses. He lost his wife, Sylvia Moses, and his son, Tal Moses. On the evening of Saturday, the 11th of April, 1987,
watching the live coverage here from Mount Herzl National Military Cemetery in Jerusalem. Again, that is the special ceremony taking place this hour for victims of terror that I do. Memorial there for victims of terror across Israel throughout all the years of the state and pre-state as well. But the ceremony, while we just had the speeches for you from President Herzog and Prime Minister Bennett, took on a bit of political color there as we heard a long spate of heckling for the Prime Minister there before he spoke. And I'm joined in the studio by our correspondent Ariel Osaran, taking a closer look at this aspect of today, Ariel. And I know all of us come into today listening for those political angles in some of the speeches. We had a decade of Prime Minister Netanyahu who would frequently weave in something minor, or at least make comments on the moment a bit, leaving us something to analyze afterwards and discuss and debate. This felt different. This seemed like the Prime Minister not wading into those waters, but the crowd, the bereaved families in attendance, bringing it to him. A bit of a surprise. I don't recall seeing that type of extended heckling for a Prime Minister at an event like this for terror victims.
And on a day like this, on Israel's Remembrance Day, a very unusual scene. You mentioned that sometimes politics are weaved in the speech. Today we saw definitely part of the speech, but it wasn't included by him. Now, as Prime Minister Bennett said in his speech, quote, "You are allowed to shout, you are allowed to hurt on a day like this." It is unfortunate that this does feel like it has a political tone to it, since also a member of his party, the Interior Minister Ayelet Shaked, also received similar heckles. She was also very allowed it to happen, said it's okay on a day like this, I can understand. And it is important to put into context one of the people who shouted, the man, there was a man and a woman who were leading this. So the man, he's a bereaved father himself, father of First Lieutenant Shir Haddad, 23-year-old soldier who was killed in a car ramming attack in Jerusalem.
You're speaking about the man waving his arms around there? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is,
sitting
the scene we had here.
Sitting in the back, standing in the back.